So if you have been in the homeschooling community for more than like 1 to 2 years, I'm pretty sure you have a small, maybe even a large list of curriculum that has either been your favorite or that you would never recommend to anybody, and a lot that are in between. So that is what this video is about today. I am going to give you my top 3 and my bottom 3 curriculum that I have used as a homeschool mom of almost 10 years. So before we get into it, if this is our first time meeting, hi, my name is Brittany. I am a homeschool mom of 4 kids, high school age down to kindergarten. And like I said, we've been homeschooling for almost a decade now. On this channel, I talk about all things homemaking and homeschool. So if that is your kind of content, I'd love it if you would subscribe. Okay, a couple of housekeeping things first, because I know that the question is going to come in the comments is, what is that that's on your chest? I have a neurological disorder that affects my heart and my heart rate. And because I'm switching cardiologists, he wants to do all of the workup. So that is a heart monitor. I'm fine. I'm not sick. It is just part of my normal care. Disclaimer number 2 is that if I mention a curriculum in here that you are just, this has worked beautifully for you, your kids are thriving, you love it, you haven't seen any of the issues that I have seen with it, please feel free to continue to use it. I am not the authority. I am not coming in saying that nobody should ever use this curriculum ever, 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 because inevitably somebody comes in and says, this worked wonderfully for my kids. If it's working great for your kids, that's great. You know what's best for your homeschool and for your kids. This is just my opinion, my experience, and the experience of other homeschool moms that I've talked to about these specific curriculum options. I am not including curriculum that I personally just didn't like, that was fine, it just didn't work for my family. These are curriculum options that I have tried that were really bad in my opinion, and that other homeschool moms have told me that they had the same problems that I found with them. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm just a mom. It's just an opinion. So with all of that being said, I'm going to start with the good stuff first, and then we'll get into the stuff that I didn't really like. For my tops, I have 4 that are my very top ranking, and then I have 2 honorable mentions. So I'm going to start with my honorable mentions. And the first one is a language arts curriculum for elementary school kids, and it is First Language Lessons by the Well-Trained Mind. I really enjoyed this curriculum. The only reason I didn't continue on with this was because I wanted something that had more recitation and drilling of certain grammar concepts than this curriculum had. But I think it is an excellent option for those who maybe want a very gentle approach to grammar in the 1st through 4th grade range. So if you are looking for a language arts curriculum that is solid, that has copywork and dictation and some poetry memorization and grammar concepts introduced, but in a very gentle way, First Language Lessons might actually be a very good option for you. My second runner-up for language arts is Christian Light Education Language Arts. This curriculum is really amazing for those people who just need something that is going to really hold your hand, that is really going to set that foundation for language arts, especially in the younger years, that they can do mostly independently, and you aren't going to be trying to pull in all of the components, and you want something that's all in one. The reason why we switched was because I wanted to pursue more of a classical and Charlotte Mason blend of a language arts method in order to facilitate just the kind of homeschool that I wanted to have. But I think that it is an excellent curriculum, and it will really set your kids up for success when it comes to language arts. And it is something that I strongly recommend, especially for people who need something that is a little bit more independent. Number 4 is EIW specifically for the upper grades. I was so terrified of teaching my oldest son to write high school papers. I didn't want to grade high school papers because it was just such an important thing for me to make sure that they were being graded properly and I wasn't being too harsh with him or I wasn't being too biased, and that he was getting an accurate grade. And so I initially went with EIW because it had the grading service with it. But then I found his writing really improved, and he was doing so well within writing that it just made me love the curriculum all the more. I will say, once you get into high school, the expectation is that grammar has been set. And so there is no grammar component when you get into the high school years. And so if you are coming into EIW and your student has not had that grammar foundation set, they haven't used EIW all the way through, or a really solid grammar curriculum up until high school, I would pull in another grammar component. We pair Fix-It Grammar with it because my oldest son did have that issue where his grammar was still a little rocky whenever we entered into high school. And so I paired Fix-It Grammar with it, and it just works very beautifully together. Highly, highly recommend. Number 3 is Story of the World. So I have talked so much about history on this channel because I love history. I am passionate about history. What I really love about Story of the World is, one, it is a very engaging curriculum. The stories just captivate my kids. They remember it, they retain it. The methods that they have options where you can do comprehension questions in the activity guide. They have narration samples in there. They have a bunch of projects you could do if you're a project kind of mom. They have map work and coloring pages. The book recommendations are fantastic. I really just love most things about Story of the World. We're in book number 3 with Story of the World. And I have only had one instance where I have felt like I didn't really love how something was handled, or it felt too much in depth on a certain thing for the age range I was teaching. But the simple fix was just to skip over a little bit of information. I just pulled some stuff out and kept some stuff in. And so it was very easy fix. And it's short enough that I feel I can add the things that I want to see into it. It is a neutral curriculum, which means it is not a secular curriculum. It is not a Christian curriculum. It doesn't take a stance. It is not a young earth. It is not an old earth. And so therefore you can really meld it to what it is that you believe. And that was perfect for me because I wanted to pull in a bunch of church history and outside resources to provide the church history that aligned with our faith. I felt like Story of the World gives you so much freedom in that. Some people have issues with the way that Christianity is presented. I don't really find that to be an issue. The few issues that I have found to come up with the way some things are presented in biblical stories, not biblical stories, but the historical parts of the Bible are presented. It was very easy to clarify certain points. And so I didn't find that to be terribly problematic. And that's probably because of my past history with other history curriculum. It was so minor compared to the other issues that I've had that I was very quick to just say, okay, I can make that work. My second top one is for teaching children to read, and that is phonics pathways. We have used phonics pathways for many years in our homeschool. I used it as a supplement for some of my 2 middle kids, and then my youngest, I have used it all the way through. I pair this with the reading lesson. I don't like the reading lesson by itself. Phonics pathways can be used by itself completely, but I do like pulling in the reading lesson as a supplement. So whenever she kind of gets stuck with phonics pathways, it's very easy to give her something more gentle, like the reading lesson, to kind of give her some time to build up on the concept and move further through phonics pathways. It is a very comprehensive but shorter book. It's not the giant curriculum that you get with something like CLE's Learning to Read, which is also something we've used in the past, or All About Reading, which has so many components. It's one book, it's $20, and it goes from learning your letter sounds all the way through a 2nd grade level, and it's very, very simple to do. It takes 10 minutes a day, and it works. I may have to kick my chickens out again. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to give her one more chance to quiet down, and then I'm going to take her and give her to my teenager. So my number one, this is probably no surprise if you've been around my channel for a little bit, but my number one curriculum recommendation that I tell everybody is my top curriculum is CLE math. I cannot express how much of a breath of fresh air CLE math was when I started it with my second son when he was in first grade, who is now in fourth grade. We are halfway through the fourth grade curriculum, and I still love it just as much as I did back in first grade. With my oldest, we tried a bunch of different math curriculum, and I always found it lacking, and then we tried so many different things. He ended up with gaps. It was a huge problem. And then when I heard about CLE math, whenever my second son was coming into kindergarten, I heard about CLE math for first grade, and I made up my mind that we were going to do that and never looked back. And I wish I had found it whenever my oldest was in elementary school, because it's such a good curriculum. Now, what I will say about CLE math, it is a longer curriculum. It's not as bad as Saxon, but it is not an easy curriculum by any means. It's a fairly rigorous curriculum. You're looking at 3 to 4 pages of math per day, and that seems like a lot for some people, but what I have found is the repetition within the curriculum gives them such a firm grasp of the concept that they retain it even after taking a break. And so I just believe that it is such a strong curriculum, and I have yet to have a child that it doesn't work for, and the two that I've used it for are polar opposites in learning styles. So, okay, now on to the divisiveness. I have 3 curriculum options that I absolutely don't recommend to people. Number 1 is teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons. I tried this curriculum with, I think, all of my children, and every single time I just could not get into it. And what always ended up happening was that I would see somebody else rave about it. I'm like, well, maybe I just wasn't ready for it. Maybe if I tried again, it will work. And every single time I'm just, no, it's so confusing and it's so complicated to do. And then they're having all of these, I don't know, my children just had issues with transferring that information over into actual reading, and I did not like it at all. And then I started talking to other homeschool moms, and they all said the same thing, like they don't recommend this curriculum. Now, again, I know a lot of people who swear by it, who love it. Abby Haberstadt, is that her name? Emma's for Mama lady has used it with all 10 of her children and still raves about it. And so I know it does work for some people, but it is one that I think there's just better options out there. And so that's my number 3. Number 2 is master books for language arts and math. And I don't think that's a huge surprise to anybody. I know some people still use master books. I think the master books phase has kind of faded. It was really, really, really big probably about 5 years ago, and I think that it started to kind of taper off. And I think master books was an overcorrection that came out whenever people were using Abeka and BJU, and it was a very intensive process. And so master books came out as a gentle approach, and people just felt like this was so Charlotte Mason and so much gentler and nicer that they felt this was a better alternative. And now you have other ones that are more middle of the road, like Math with Confidence came out, and I'm trying to think of some other ones. I've lost it now. Some other options that came out that were more gentle, but they were still held enough of the rigor that it kind of gave you that bridge instead of having it so intensive like Becca was or is and BJU is. And so I think that a lot of people have walked away from master books because it is too gentle. I was even showing my fourth grader some of the fourth grade math as I was going through to prepare for this video. And he was like, this looks like my warm up for my math. And while I do admit CLE is significantly harder than a lot of curriculum that you will find out there, it was so vastly different that it didn't even, it was apples and oranges. It is fairly common to hear people talk that, you know, the math is about a grade level or so behind. And I personally used master books with my oldest when he was in fourth grade, and we moved into fifth grade and he had zero retention. We bought the fifth grade book. He remembered nothing. And so I tried to switch him. I tested him within Saxon, because that was what we ended up switching to, which was also a big mistake for him specifically. But I tested him within the testing for Saxon, and he was way below grade level. He was a full grade and a half behind. And so not only had master books not taught him anything the previous year, but he'd also lost some things that he had learned from before then. And then the language arts, I don't understand how the language arts is possibly considered a full language arts curriculum, because the thing is, you have one day and it's like reading comprehension and it's a little passage with a couple of questions to answer. And then the next day is some problems. And I was looking at the third grade, and it's like circle the adjectives and noun, and you have 5 questions and maybe a little narration exercise, and that's it. And then you don't do any of the spelling. They give you a list of spelling words at the end of the week that you're supposed to practice for one day, and that's your spelling. There's no reading involved in it at all. And my last one, my top don't recommend, is teaching textbooks. And I know this is a hot button take because people love teaching textbooks. So this is my personal experience and the experience of those that I have talked to. We used teaching textbooks for my oldest for many years. He used every single grade level from 3rd grade through 8th grade. He learned very little through the entirety of the process because it just didn't stick. Even though he did every single level, he never really retained it. And that was actually very common as I spoke to other people, that as you moved through the levels, the retention was just not there. Whenever they would get into upper levels, if they switched into a different curriculum or if they were tested in another way, they were several grades behind where they ought to be. And we had to go back and do a lot of foundational work. When he got into 9th grade, we moved into Math UC, and that helped tremendously to set a better foundation and cover the concepts that he did not get in teaching textbooks. The problems that he had with teaching textbooks, it was very obviously the curriculum. There is no review of math facts. There is no, which is very common, I am finding, with a lot of math curriculum. They don't remind you to drill math facts, which, by the way, you should be drilling math facts with your kids, period, full stop. If I can tell you one thing as a homeschool mom, if you take one thing from my videos, drill your math facts. Get flashcards, set them up on extramath.com. It's a free website if you don't want to do flashcards, but please drill their math facts, because that is going to make a world of difference with their experience with math as they get into higher level math. But that is not expressed within teaching textbooks. And most people I have talked to found gaps not just within higher levels, because a lot of people will say, well, it's just at a different scope and sequence. The gaps that people are finding are foundational gaps. They're not gaps that you would learn in algebra or geometry. These are gaps that are foundational aspects of math. I know many people who they say that their kids were getting A's. My son was one of them. He left every year. We would end off, he would have a 95 to 98 in his math. We were under the impression that he was doing very well in math. And then he got out of teaching textbooks whenever he got into the high school range, and nothing stuck. I know it's not just my case, it's not just my experience, because I've talked to many moms who had the exact same experience. So, of all of the curriculum that I don't recommend, I would say teaching textbooks is probably at the top. So that is it. And I am going to go ahead and tell y'all I'm done with the controversial videos for a little bit, because I wasn't even going to put this video out, but then I made an offhanded comment in one video that I made a couple of weeks back about curriculum I won't touch with a 20-foot pole, and everybody wanted to know what that would be. But I don't like stirring the pot all that much. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you got to stir it, because I needed to know this kind of information when I was a new homeschooler too, and it wasn't really readily out there. But I don't particularly enjoy arguing with people on the internet. And so this is going to be my last controversial video for a while. So we're going to get back to regularly scheduled like programming now. But if you did like this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you can have more homeschool content. I put out videos Monday and Friday, and I also tend to go live on Saturdays to do homeschool planning with y'all. If you're not following me over on Instagram, I'm going to go ahead and drop my handle down here. And with all that being said, I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.